Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started on page 160. We're just doing some more practice solving those absolute value equations, same thing that we talked about on Friday. So if you remember, when we go to solve an absolute value equation, the thing we need to consider is that absolute value is referring to my distance from 0. So if we wanted to know the absolute value of 2, that would be 2 because it's 2 units away from 0. But the absolute value of -2, also talking about the distance from 0, -2 is also 2 units from 0. So the absolute value of +2 is 2, and the absolute value of -2 is also 2. So we need to consider both these options when we're solving an absolute value equation. So if we take a look at number 1 here, we have the absolute value of x minus 3 equals 2. So maybe x minus 3 actually did give us 2. And when we took the absolute value of 2, we got 2. But maybe x minus 3 actually gave us -2. And then when I took the absolute value of -2 is when we came up with +2. So we talked about this on Friday. We need to consider both of these options when we're solving an absolute value equation. So I'm going to solve each of these for x. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I get x equals 5. And then again, add 3 to both sides, and we get x equals 1. So there are my 2 solutions for this problem. Questions for me so far? Okay. Let's hop over to number 4. For number 4, we have the absolute value of -9x plus 3 equals -64. We looked at a similar problem on Friday. We're taking the absolute value here and we've got something negative. That should send up a red flag because absolute value shouldn't give me something negative. The absolute value of 2 is 2. The absolute value of -2 is also 2, right? I should always get something positive out of that absolute value because it's giving me a distance. So what does that mean if I take an absolute value and I get something negative? What does that mean for my solutions here? Exactly, no solutions. Shouldn't get a negative result from taking an absolute value. So we say no solution. Again, we looked at an example like that on Friday. Questions on number 4? Okay, let's hop down to number 6. So on number 6, we've got an absolute value equals 0. That's okay. So I'm going to take the stuff inside of my absolute value and set it equal to 0. And then do I need to set it equal to -0 as well? No, 0 isn't positive or negative. So in the instances where I'm equal to 0, we only have one equation that we need to solve. I'm going to move this 7 to the other side, and I get -7b equals -7. Divide both sides by -7 to get b by itself, and we get b to be +1. Questions for me on number 6? Okay. So in each of these examples, we had a fairly straightforward, here's the absolute value, it's equal to this. That's not going to be the case for all of the problems that we look at. And we saw examples like that on Friday where I had other stuff going on. So the last 2 examples we're going to take a look at are going to be a little more complicated because we won't just have the absolute value equal to something. We'll have some other stuff happening. So if we hop down to number 8. Number 8, we've got more stuff happening. Now, I'm going to point something out about number 8 and number 4. In number 4, we said if our absolute value is equal to something negative, that's not okay and we'll have no solution. If I take a look at number 8, I'm equal to a negative number here, but that's not a problem right now, okay? I've got other stuff happening. It's not just the absolute value. I've got other stuff going on. So I need to get the absolute value by itself before I start saying things like there's no solution, okay? So I have to get this thing by itself. Then if the absolute value by itself equals something negative, that's a problem. But right now, I don't have any problems. So I'm going to go ahead and get the absolute value by itself. I'm going to start by moving this 1 to the other side. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And I get negative absolute value of x plus 2 equals negative 4. Now this negative sign in front is like a negative 1 times the absolute value. So to get rid of it, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. So I get the absolute value of x plus 2 equals 4. Now that I have the absolute value piece by itself, it's not equal to anything negative anymore. So we can go ahead and set x plus 2 equal to 4 and x plus 2 equals negative 4. And then we'll solve each of those. So I'm going to move 2 to the other side and I get x equals 2. And then again, move 2 to the other side and we get x equals negative 6. Questions for me on number 8? A little more involved on this one since we had a couple things to move. We had to get that absolute value by itself first, but same types of steps you would use to solve an equation. Okay, we're going to look at a couple more together. Go ahead and turn the page to page 160 for me, and then we're going to be down here towards the bottom. So on page 161, number 14, I have to get the absolute value piece by itself. So I'm going to start by moving 7 to the other side. So I have 5 times the absolute value of 8p minus 5 equals 105. Now I have to move this 5 to the other side, so I'll divide both sides by 5. And I have the absolute value of 8p minus 5 equals 21. From here, we're going to set our absolute value, 8p minus 5 equal to positive 21 and negative 21. And then we'll solve for p in each. I'm going to start by adding 5 to both sides. That gets me 8p equals 26. Then I'll divide both sides by 8. And I get p equals 26 divided by 8 isn't going to divide evenly, but I could reduce this since these are both divisible by 2. That would give me 13 over 4. If you wanted to change that to a decimal instead, you could. So that would be 12.25. Sorry, 3.25. And then same idea down here. Add 5 to both sides. So I have 8p equals negative 16. Then divide both sides by 8. And we would get p equals negative 2. Questions on 14? Okay, let's look at one more together, number 16. Again, I want to get the absolute value piece by itself. I'm going to start by subtracting 8 from both sides. So we get negative 8 times the absolute value of 6 plus 3x equals negative 96. Then we're going to divide both sides by negative 8. And we get the absolute value of 6 plus 3x equals 12. And then we can set 6 plus 3x equal to positive 12, and 6 plus 3x equal to negative 12. And then same idea, solve each equation to see what you get for x. So I'm going to start by moving 6 to the other side. So I would get 3x equals 6. Divide both sides by 3, and we get x to be 2. Then for my other equation, again, start by moving 6 to the other side. This time we get 3x equals negative 18. Then divide both sides by 3, and we get x to be negative 6. They're my two solutions there. Questions for me on 16? Okay, so for the rest of class, I want you to work on the problems left on page 160 and 161. You also have a Delta Math assignment to complete. Excuse me. It's only 4 problems. Your Delta Math must be done by the end of the class period. Okay, that's posted on the assignment calendar in Google Classroom. And I'm also telling you right now, okay, your Delta Math, your 4 problems on Delta Math must be done by the end of the class period. Okay, you have like 35 minutes left, so we should be okay on that one. Okay,